Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Flowers, Division Head ad interim for the Division of Cancer Medicine. I'd like to welcome you all today as we celebrate the life and accomplishments of our dear friend and colleague, Dr. Gauri Varadhachary. Our co-hosts for the program today are Drs. Marina George, Vice President of Inpatient Medical Operations, and Dr. James Yao, Chair of GI Medical Oncology. We're so very appreciative today that Gauri's husband, Atul, and their daughters, Tanvai and Raya, and extended family from far and wide were able to join us today. We hope that you'll be able to see how much Gauri meant to us, how loved she is, and how much of an impact she's had on each and every one of us. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us here today. Although I joined the MD Anderson faculty relatively recently in 2019 and have gotten to know Gauri for just a very short period of time, I was immediately touched by how caring and deeply committed she is to the craft of practicing medicine. She was clearly a soft-spoken and intelligent leader, one of who practiced the best in medicine, and a thoughtful and caring provider who led the way by her example. She clearly expressed a very strong love of her family and a wonderful human being who's left a really profound and beautiful legacy for all of us at MD Anderson. It's really, truly an honor to have known her as a truly caring provider. I'd now like to invite Chaplain Brooks Hurd to provide us with some words of inspiration.
Thank you, Dr. Flowers. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored this afternoon to share a reflection as we gather to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Gauri. She's touched the lives of countless patients, students, and friends. She's loved by many and treasured in the hearts of her loved ones forever. As her light continues to shine brightly, we rejoice that her life was lived with such love and peace. Light, in many spiritual traditions, represents intelligence and illumination, or awakening and awareness. Someone once said, "One who kindles the light of awareness within gets true light. The enlightened mind can accomplish much." Another writes, "An awakened heart is like a sky that pours light." For some, light is the very essence of our souls. Often when we think of light, we think about the sun and the moon and the stars. When light enters into a dim space, it expels the darkness to reveal what is present. Light shows us a new path that was previously hidden. Light inspires us to move beyond what we thought could not be done and imagine greater possibility. Light is that little dot at the end of a tunnel that grows as we move closer to it. In the midst of difficulty, challenge, and struggles, we need light, even if it is only a small ray, because light calls us to hope. As we celebrate today, we know that Dr. Gauri's light has touched us all. Perhaps a word from the poet Amanda Gorman is fitting to close this reflection. For there is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain. We would like to share a photo montage now.
बहती हवा सा था वो, उड़ती पतंग सा था वो, कहाँ गया उसे ढूंढो। बहती हवा सा था वो, उड़ती पतंग सा था वो, कहाँ गया उसे ढूंढो। हमको तो राहें थी चलाती, वो खुद अपनी राह बनाता, गिरता संभलता मस्ती में चलता था वो। हमको कल की फिक्र सताती, वो बस आज का जश्न मनाता, हर लम्हे को खुल के जीता था वो। कहाँ से आया था वो, छू के हमारे दिल को, कहाँ गया उसे ढूंढो। सुलगती धूप में छाँव के जैसा, रेगिस्तान में गाँव के जैसा, मन के घाव पे मरहम जैसा था वो। हम सहमे से रहते कुएं में, वो नदिया में गोते लगाता, उल्टी धारा चीर के तैरता था वो। बादल आवारा था वो, यार हमारा था वो, कहाँ गया उसे ढूंढो। हमको तो राहें थी चलाती, वो खुद अपनी राह बनाता, गिरता संभलता मस्ती में चलता था वो। हमको कल की फिक्र सताती, वो बस आज का जश्न मनाता, हर लम्हे को खुल के जीता था वो। कहाँ से आया था वो, छू के हमारे दिल को, कहाँ गया उसे ढूंढो।
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, Ria and Tanvi, thank you for sharing. I would like to hand this over next to Dr. James Yao, Chair of Medical Oncology, GI Medical Oncology, to share a few comments about Gauri. Dr. Yao has worked with her for several years and seen her in different phases, and we would like to hear from him and listen to what Gauri has done for all of the patients and our MD Anderson community.
Thank you. Dear friends and colleagues, we come together today to remember and celebrate the life of Dr. Gauri Varadhachary. Gauri is an incredibly special person, and we're privileged to have known her and worked with her. She impacted so many, not only the patients she treated and the people around her, but also the department where she worked for 18 years, and the broader institution, and the wider fields of unknown primary cancers and pancreatic cancers where she worked. I first met Gauri at Baylor College of Medicine, where she already stood out as an exemplar of a caring and brilliant physician. She knew every detail about her patients and had encyclopedic knowledge of the relevant medical literature. But over the years, I've come to know Gauri's skill as a clinician actually went far beyond facts and figures. She joined MD Anderson. She cared for some of the most complex patients with unknown primary and pancreatic cancers. As a clinical investigator, she led many clinical trials, ranging from innovative phase 0 studies to large national randomized studies. She's nationally and internationally recognized for her expertise in the unknown primary field, publishing a state-of-the-art overview of the field in New England Journal of Medicine. These days, we talk about evidence-based practice in medicine as the best way to treat patients. However, those of us in the field understand that evidence base tends to be broad and needs to be refined, fine-tuned when applied to the individual patient. This really requires a true mastery. Gauri was caring, meticulous, and passionate about taking the very best possible care of her patients. She can fine-tune the treatment plans with small adjustments that made the difference. For over 15 years, Gauri and I practiced one hallway apart from each other in the GI Center, and she was my go-to and sounding board for those unusual cases that did not fit the textbooks. For her skilled and compassionate care, Dr. Varadhachary was awarded the prestigious Melvin L. Samuel Award for Excellence in Patient Care. In institutional service, Gauri has had many roles throughout the years. For many years, she was the Department Quality Officer for GI Medical Oncology. Later, she took on the role of Center Medical Director for the GI Center, a complex multidisciplinary center that included 5 academic departments and treats more than 11 different types of cancers. For her excellence, she was named one of the first executive medical directors in the institution. In recent years, she helped to lead our Goals of Care initiative, and most recently, co-led our COVID-19 vaccination efforts. Beyond these roles, Gauri was also about education, mentorship, and she cared deeply about the health and well-being of fellow department members. Over the past 2.5 years, while battling illness herself, Gauri devoted much of her energy to mentoring junior faculty and helping to put together an important retreat that is shaping the direction of the department. Most recently, championing the efforts around wellness. She was a friend to so many. Her smile and energy were infectious. We're all grateful to have received her perspective and advice over the years. We'll treasure her memory of her and honor her legacy by continuing our work to discover new treatments and to improve the outcome of patients with GI cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yao. Like the starry sky that we just see, everything that Gauri touched upon was built upon excellence and passion. I would like to now introduce Dr. Bilala Terefe. She's our Chief Medical Executive and would provide us our reflections from her standpoint, and we welcome you, Dr. Terefe.
Marina, thank you. And thank you to Atul and his whole family for inviting me to share with you today. I will admit to you that I had to turn my camera off during the montage because just seeing Gauri's beautiful face brought up for me again that deep sense of sadness that Gauri is no longer with us. Someone so remarkable with so much to give, whom so many wanted and needed. And we all would have loved to have had her loving presence with us for years and decades to come. But I'm also reminded that I need to memorialize Gauri in a way that honors how she lived these last years of her life while she contributed to the mission of MD Anderson under what were very challenging circumstances. So I tried to recruit Gauri to my team as one of my first orders of business when I became CMO in 2018. She was a natural and recognized leader in all things related to medical staff, patient care, and operational excellence, which were the main areas of focus in my new role. And then, as it seems always, she had great clarity about how she wanted to spend her energy, her time, and her intellect. She was not interested in applying for the various leadership positions I tried to sell her on. Her clinical research, her patient care, and other priorities were too valuable for her to make space for an administrative leadership role. And instead, she offered her talents to me in another way. She offered to guide and support the process of selecting those leaders. I took her up on what I thought at the time was a consolation prize, and I made her my special advisor. That was the start of an incredible professional and personal relationship, one which had positive and transformational effects on the leaders Gauri helped me to recruit, on the entire organization and its mission, and profoundly on me. Gauri helped build the CMO team from scratch. She provided mentorship, guidance, and operational support to Dr. Ying and Dr. George, and she helped them in turn to build their teams. She guided me as I worked to become the kind of boss that Anita and Marina deserved, and the leader that MD Anderson needed. When we undertook the reorganization of our clinical enterprise following the lessons learned from CMS and the onboarding of our incredible COO, Rosanna Morris, Gauri walked me through that process of letting go of the old and embracing the possibilities of the new. Her wise counsel and encouragement was key in helping me take the leap to apply for the role of Chief Medical Executive, and I was blessed to continue to count her as a counselor, confidant, and advisor in the first 6 months of my role. I'll mention here that through almost the entirety of our relationship, Gauri was under treatment for cancer. I say this with the greatest admiration and regard because it did not dissuade Gauri from that clarity she always possessed about who she was and what she wanted to spend her time on this earth doing. She was more herself and more centered, calm, and mission-oriented during her years of tremendous challenge than many of us are on our best days, me included. I felt humbled and privileged every time she chose to share with me any detail of her care and of her journey towards spiritual reconciliation with the reality of her illness. But much more often, our conversations were about how we could continue to support the mission of MD Anderson, how we could develop others, support our people, and take on challenging initiatives that benefited our patients. It's so fitting that one of Gauri's last initiatives was to lead the development of the COVID vaccination guidelines for cancer patients, guidelines that, while developed for us internally, immediately became a national standard, guidelines that helped some of the most vulnerable in our society to seek safety from this pandemic. That was Gauri. That was her essence, reflected in that last big initiative that she worked on with me. The way in which Gauri continued to live her life fully during her illness almost distracted me at times from the reality that her time on this earth was limited. And I continue to reflect with a sense of chagrin at myself that my last contact with Gauri 2 days before she left this earth was a text message. We texted each other and made plans to talk later, as if I could have taken later for granted. My hope for myself, the way I want to honor Gauri in the remaining time I have on this earth, is to remember that every day is precious and that I should take no time for granted. That I should live it to the fullest with the kind of grace and dignity and compassion, the kindness, the calm, the wit, the grace that Gauri lived every single one of her days. I know that there is much about Gauri that even those of us who knew and loved her professionally could not see from our vantage point, and I just want to also acknowledge and thank Atul and his daughters for gifting us the time that we did have with Gauri and the opportunity to share in both our sadness at her passing and our celebration of her incredible life. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Torres, for sharing those moving tributes. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Anita Yee, Vice President for Ambulatory Medical Operations, to share a few words.
Thanks, James. There's so many words I can think of to describe Gauri. Humble, wise, generous, purpose-driven, and positive. And recently, my 18-year-old daughter said she'd love to see what I was like at work, not because she plans to be a doctor, but because she was curious to see how I talk to patients and to experience how it might feel like to work with me. That led me to think, Ria and Tanvi, I want to try and paint a picture of what it was like to work with your mother. I first met your mom when we both became center medical directors, which meant that we helped oversee the clinics where patients came to see their medical teams. The GI center where your mom worked is one of the largest and diverse clinics that we have at MD Anderson. And so she had a really big job that was supposed to only take 10 to 15% of her time. Whenever someone brought an issue to her, your mom always took the time to understand all sides, what the doctor was facing, what the nurse or scheduler was facing, and most importantly, what the patient and their family was facing. In meetings, she'd sit with perfect posture, lean into the table sometimes with natural curiosity, or sit back with her head turned slightly to the side, hand on her chin, index finger on her cheek, thinking through the dilemma that was at hand. She had a really natural decision-making ability to prioritize all the information she was given while staying focused on our true purpose. Sometimes the decisions required difficult conversations with colleagues or staff, convincing them that we needed to change how we did things, or at other times that the issue being discussed wasn't something that needed changing because it served the greater good. People always listened to your mom because they trusted she'd been thorough, fair, and selfless in her approach. There were many institution-wide projects that your mom and I worked on together the last 5 years. And whenever that happened, I always felt like that middle school kid in PE, when you got placed on a team with the star athlete and did a silent fist pump in your head, because I always knew the end product was going to be a winner. Our last project together was the COVID vaccine effort for patients. Your mom helped lead the group of physicians to develop our guidance to cancer patients to recommend the best time to get the vaccine in relation to their cancer treatment. Many other institutions were looking to MD Anderson for guidance, but most importantly, our own doctors and patients trusted our experts. We then took those and implemented it in our vaccine clinic, and we could always count on your mom to hand off the baton without any bobbles, to anticipate what was needed before and after the handoff, and to make the race a success for the entire team. Your mom was always a text or email away from me to run something by her, to pull on her wisdom, to bounce off an idea, to be challenged in my assumptions. While I can't do that anymore, I still use what your mom taught me, to ask questions, to seek input, and to remain positive. Ria and Tavi, your mom was a role model for all of us, whether it was her positive approach to caring for patients, leading teams, or raising beautiful daughters. Mahatma Gandhi once said, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. That's how I will always remember your mom.
Thank you, Dr. Yee.
those were some of the words that people have shared with us that to us described Gauri. But words are never enough to speak to how she touched every single person, and in very different ways indeed. As we look at the rose, we see petals that are all different shapes, sizes, and texture. That is how she was to every single person. Thank you, Dr. Ying. Thank you to everybody who has shared their words. These words that describe Gauri is going to be collated together as an art. And we would like to take this opportunity to present this virtually to the family. And we will be doing this and sending this over in person as well. Thank you. We would now like to take a moment to introduce Dr. Matthew Katz. Dr. Katz is the Center Medical Director of the GI Center, one of the largest and the hardest to do. And now he's also the Chair of Surgical Oncology. And we would like to invite you, Dr. Katz, to share your reflections. Over to you.
Thanks so much. And it's obviously difficult to add add to what's already been said about Gauri, but I do appreciate this opportunity to try to reflect on what an important person Gauri was to me personally, and the impact she really made on my career and on my life. And together with you, to celebrate her as a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. Because she was all three of these things to me, as she was to so many others, both inside our institution and outside of it. I met Gauri in 2008, I think, when I was a first-year surgical oncology fellow, and right away impressed by her knowledge of cancer, but also her deep understanding of patients. And I could tell immediately that this was someone I should learn as much as I possibly could from. When I joined the faculty a couple of years later, I was lucky enough to be placed in clinic on the same day as Gauri, several halls away. And I remember distinctly, I can remember the patient and I can remember the day that we saw our first patient together. And I remember being so proud to share that patient with her. And every clinic day after that, I would walk back and forth between Bluebonnet and Frisia multiple times every clinic, both to discuss individual patients with her, but also just to chat and absorb as much as I could. This typically extended my clinic time significantly, but it taught me how to take care of patients with cancer. Over the past decade, we shared hundreds of patients together, patients with the most difficult of problems. And I can truly say that my approach to the treatment of patients with cancer is based to a large degree on everything that I learned from her. And certainly for the past 2 years, when she's been unable to take part in patient care, every one of our patients comes to me and asks how she's doing and what they can do for her. In addition to our clinical time together, we worked on multiple institutional initiatives. She always came at everything from the patient's perspective, always wanted to serve the institution in any way she possibly could. And, she stayed on as the AMD in the GI Center to help me and her team, despite balancing all of her other institutional responsibilities and despite her illness. And for that, I and the entire GI Center team are very grateful. With respect to Gauri as a mentor, every one of us has mentors And most of us have many mentors. But I think that a mentor that is fully and unequivocally invested in the success of another is actually quite rare. And most of us are lucky to find one or two individuals like that in an entire career. For me and for many of us on this call, I know one of those individuals was Gauri. What I valued most in that regard was her honest way of communicating. She always had my back, but always pushed me really hard to grow. If I was doing a great job, she would tell me. If I was doing a lousy job, she would be the first to tell me. And I knew where she stood on every issue, positive or negative. She felt very free to be honest with me. And that feedback and support has been instrumental to my professional development. And I know that many of our faculty and staff, trainees throughout the institution feel exactly the same way. As a friend, the traits that made Gauri a great mentor also made her such a great friend. Her caring nature, her generosity, her honesty, her integrity, her loyalty, her selfishness, all of these things. Our friendship was based on the fact that we had a lot in common, I think, our devotion to our families. We each had kids who were of similar age, shared political beliefs. And we talked about these things a lot, but rarely talked about work outside of work. And as all of us are aware, that is not very common, particularly among physicians. Both Gauri and Atul have become true friends to me and my wife, Kristen, who's also here with me. And both of us value the time we were able to spend with both of them very much. And I hope we've been and will continue to be as good friends to them as each of them have been to us. And Atul, Kristen and I are here for you and your family, as obviously as everyone on this call. In thinking about what I was going to say today, I kept coming back to the fact that I wanted to give Gauri's family, and particularly her girls, my perspective of Gauri in a way that I know would be shared by all of us on the call. So to say it concisely, your mother made a difference in many ways. She made an impact on people's lives daily, and she leaves behind a profound legacy, both inside and outside our institution. I'm proud to have had Gauri as a colleague. I'm greatly indebted to her as a mentor, and I'm forever grateful for her friendship.
Thank you, Dr. Katz, for sharing. Now we want to invite Dr. Rogoff, Gauri's colleague and faculty member in GI Medical Oncology, to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Yao. I've been thinking what to say when I'm absolutely certain that words are never going to be enough. She was Dr. Varadhachary to some people, Dr. V to others who found it very challenging to pronounce her above Indian average complex last name. To her friends, she was Gauri. To my 5-year-old daughter, she was Gauri auntie. But by any name for me, she was always chief, my chief. We deliberated about this a long time, and she always wanted me to call her Gauri, but it's very hard when you revere someone so much to use their first name to address them. So what can I possibly say about her that has already not been said? That everyone present here has not already experienced, that everybody here already doesn't know. What can I say more about her being such a kind, generous, accomplished, fair, and just a beautiful human being? How can I summarize such an extraordinary life in 5 minutes, which, just like her name was shiny and brilliant. You couldn't enter a room and not notice her presence. But I'm going to give it my best shot. So here's the word. Oxford Dictionary states that the word rare is derived from the Latin phrase rarus. It means widely spaced or infrequent. It defines rare as not occurring very often, not found in large numbers, and consequentially of interest and value, and are unusually good or remarkable. I think Gauri was rare. 6 billion people in this world, more often than not, short-sighted, self-serving, disingenuous. She was different. She was genuine and real. And I think every time she told you something, she meant it. She was rare like the cancer she used to treat. And what's more amazing is how rare and special she made you feel when you were with her. Not many people you can truly say that about. I think she was one of a kind, and the world will be a little less without her. All through these years, she has been many different people to me. She was first my mentor, then my colleague, then my friend, my confidant, and then my mother. I met her in November as an aspiring fellow discussing a cancer of unknown primary project, which was a phenomenal failure, by the way. But she always edged me on to continue doing research. She got me interested in peritoneal mesothelioma, which turned out into a valuable effort. All of these things started as interests, and she morphed these into a passion for me because of the way she cared for her patients. It was truly inspiring. A mother is often described as someone who, takes care of you kindly and sometimes excessively. And she used to do that all the time with me. If I ever was to go into, a storyline about the reprimands that I got from her about the way I was functioning, the way I was not adapting properly, it would be a altogether different story in itself. But not only for me as professionally, but she took me and my wife in guiding us always to be better people, better physicians, and better parents, for that matter of sake. She was my teacher to the end, actually. The grace with which she faced cancer, I would never say battle cancer because that would really infuriate her. The grace with which she faced cancer was extraordinary. You should have been there to see that. It was unpracticed, natural, and very much in line with the philosophies that she laid out for me. Everything I've learned from her when it comes to cancer of unknown primary. And even as she went through that journey, she was teaching me continuously through those hours of infusion when we sat together in the ATC about being a better oncologist and, more importantly, being a better person. Her trust in me was one of my greatest achievements. She was truly my hero. Atul, Tanvi, and Ria, I miss her. I miss her caring voice, her thoughtful perspectives, and most importantly, I miss her reassuring presence in my life. Truthfully, I'm heartbroken, but all through this time, I'm thankful for you to sharing her with me, for loving and trusting me, and I'm always here for you. Ben Jonson once said, "In small proportions, we just beauty see, and in short measures, life may perfect be." The one lesson that we learn from her life is that as brief as it is, life should not be about commendations, but about consequence. She was 52 years and left a legacy and a lasting influence that I will never forget. And although nothing will really fill this void in our lives, the best I can do, the best we all can do, is to celebrate her and to uphold the values she lived. One of these days, when we were discussing life and politics and work, and she loved discussing politics, by the way, which I hate, but we received this acceptance notice for our cancer of unknown primary paper, which started in November 2012. And she said that she couldn't have been prouder of me. That was one of the best days of my life. I will never forget her. I will always love her for who she was and who I am because of her. Thank you, everyone. And I apologize for this, fudging this nice ceremony.
Thank you, Raghav, for sharing your reflections. Our final speaker will be Dr. Robert Wolf, Senior Faculty in GI Medical Oncology and Deputy Division Head for the Division of Cancer Medicine. Bob, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, James. I'm wondering if who's ever running the Zoom could let me share my screen for just a few minutes here. Can you see my screen? Great. So I just want to start. Hang on one second here. Just want to start by thanking all who served Gauri. I think this is a large village of people who were dedicated to her care throughout her journey. And I just think MD Anderson was a big part of who Gauri was and what she represented. And I know that everyone on this list was dedicated to her and are just their efforts just reflect so wonderfully on our institution and our mission. I have to give a very special shout out to Frank, who had the daunting challenge of helping Gauri while many other very talented people looked over his shoulder. He did this with great grace and patience, and I thank him tremendously for all his help. I want to thank Raghav in particular for being a great advisor to Gauri. He served both as a mentee and a guidance counselor and helped her weigh her options in a way that I don't think anyone else could beyond her own family. I want to thank Walela and Anita and Marina for providing Gauri an opportunity to continue to engage her mind without draining her body. And that was just very special to me. And I thank you. And of course, Sarah and I want to thank very much Atul and Tanvi and Ria for bolstering Gauri and supporting her and helping her bear the unbearable and be with her every step of the way. This we are all indebted to you for doing, and as Walela said, thank you for sharing her with us during the last 2.5 years that she was with us. It was very meaningful to many of us that she stayed engaged with us a lot of the time. Got to look at my script here real quick. Now, I will say that others have already spoken of her many great attributes. She's a great doctor, a wonderful colleague, a quiet, confident leader, an outstanding mentor, an advisor to junior and senior leaders in GIMO, GI surgery, our division, and our institution. To me, most importantly, Gauri was my friend. We had what I consider a very special friendship. And as Raghav just stated, I think many folks joining us today feel the same way. Gauri made people feel special, respected, cared for, and loved. I just want to share a couple of pictures here of her garden. Gauri had to recreate this after the deep freeze we had. She put a lot of thought into it. She worked hard at it. And I just think it's in and of itself a great tribute to her ability to create beauty when there was none previously. I think it's very hard to call this a celebration, although it is a great celebration and a great tribute to her. We are all grieving, and I've tried to think about the best way to manage my grief and help others with theirs. And my only advice is for all of us to unleash our inner Gauri. Let your garden bloom. Show your beautiful colors. Provide comfort to those with distress. Add to the serenity that's needed in the world. And show the incredible beauty to all that surrounds you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you. And I hope others have an opportunity to say and remember Gauri in their own way before we end this.
Thank you, Bob, for sharing that moving memory. Another way we will remember Gauri is through establishing a departmental fund in her honor. We have already identified funds that are currently working through some details with the development office to identify purpose and use of funds that align with initiatives that Gauri was truly passionate about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yao. As we look at all that Gauri brought to us, what we have shared with her, we know that what comes and reflects from within her is a reflection of what is her and her family. Every time we mention their family, she would brighten up. She would really be happy, truly happy, speaking about it, sharing. And that is the Gauri that we know. We would like to today invite Atul, Tanvi, and Ria to share within the small time frame all of who she was with us as well. And thank you for joining us. Atul, off to you.
Great. Thank you, Marina. MD Anderson and its people are a very special place and have meant the world to Gauri. This includes her colleagues, her friends, what I would consider her non-biological family. I will not mention any individual names here since there are so many, but you know who you are and what you have meant to Gauri. And I am honored that I can call many of you my friends. There are three distinct parts to this symbiotic relationship that I would like to share. First was the professional piece. Gauri spent almost 20 years at MD Anderson. It was truly an amazing journey, and I'm so proud of how she flourished and grew over the years. Then 2.5 years ago, in November 2018, Gauri took on an ironic new role, that of a patient with lung cancer. She presented with extensive metastatic disease, and we could reasonably expect maybe 6 months. But with her colleagues, her friends, all pulling together, we effectively got a 2-year bonus. This extra time, although never enough, allowed Gauri to hit many important milestones. Our daughters graduated from college and high school respectively, followed by their first years at work and at college. We also got to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. None of this would have been possible without the amazing care she received at MD Anderson and the village, the true village that Dr. Wolf shared in his remarks. Thanks for doing that. But the piece I perhaps appreciate the most from Anderson is her work these last couple of years. After her diagnosis, Gauri stepped back from clinical care and her colleagues generously stepped in to take care of her patients who all meant so much to her. But Gauri did not want to let her cancer define who she was and wanted to continue to contribute to the extent that she could. Her Anderson family stepped up once again and allowed her to do just that. She played a variety of new roles, often contributing her additional perspective as a patient. And she was still working until about 2 weeks before her passing. And that meant the world to her and allowed her to think less about her own cancer and focus on others. So sharing how much you, her professional family, meant to her is the best way I can express my deep appreciation to all of you. Thank you. And now, here to share additional perspectives are the pieces of Gauri's biological family that were closest to her heart, our daughters, Tanvi and Ria.
Hearing about the impact that our mother had on MD Anderson and on her colleagues is absolutely amazing. We are so thankful that she had such an incredible team to work with and support her through everything. All of you on this call are a huge reason that MD Anderson meant so much to my mother. Those same qualities that we all saw in my mom in her work life, her empathy for her patients, her support as a mentor, and her drive as a leader, she demonstrated at home as well.
The caring doctor, truly dedicated to helping her patients and colleagues, was also dedicated to the care of her two daughters. Despite working long hours, she would come home and eat dinner with us every night, asking about our day and wanting to hear about our problems, no matter how small. There is nothing she wouldn't do for the people around her. In fact, on one very memorable vacation, she and my little sister were riding a horse that started to gallop. She was worried that Ria, only 5 years old at the time, would fall off, so she threw herself off the horse with her arms wrapped around my sister to protect her, pretty much sacrificing herself. While I'm not endorsing jumping off galloping horses, it just truly shows how much love she had for the people in her life.
Our mom also excelled in providing mentorship and advice to us. She always told me, if you stay true to your values and work hard, success will follow you wherever you go. Whether I was ranting about boys, stressed about my future, or just having a bad day, she would know the perfect thing to say to set me on the right path. One time I was telling her that I had no idea what I wanted to do in college and with life. I wanted to take courses in government, astrophysics, biology, and many more things because they all interested me. The next day, she pulled me aside and gave me a stack of books about various topics I mentioned and told me to read about them and see which sparked the most passion in me. This not only taught me not to jump into things, but ignited a love for learning.
Her drive as a leader and ability to get things done set an example for everyone around her. You could see how motivated she was just by the way she walked. She practically sprinted everywhere, even if we were just walking around the mall trying to window shop. She was truly a power woman and successfully juggled an incredible career, a loving family, and her own passions. That only comes from being organized and structured with your time, practices that she really focused on instilling in me. She taught me the importance of balance in our day, setting aside time to get all of our work done, but also finding time to recharge. When Rhea and I were much younger and much more annoying, we would run up to my mother and start badgering her with questions the second she came home from work. But she would say, "Girls, let me just have my 1 cup of tea, and then I'm 100% yours." And sure enough, she had the schedule down where she would always have her 15 minutes of alone time to gather her thoughts and decompress before stepping up to the next task. She really was an incredible role model. And to this day, I follow her example by keeping numerous lists all over the house and sticking to a schedule that balances my career, housework, as well as personal fun.
And personal fun is very important because, being her, of course, she had an unprofessional side. As well as being a truly caring, driven woman, our mom had a lighthearted personality that made her an absolute joy to be around. She was the goofiest person I knew and always had a joke or a witty comment ready to fire. 1 second, she would be her serious talker self, and the next, she would transform into a machine on the dance floor, boogieing to the Mamma Mia soundtrack or doing dandy in the kitchen. She loved to explore, paint, travel, and many times her curiosity while hiking would make us venture off our path and we would be lost in the woods. But no matter what she did it with a bright smile across her face.
It's definitely very hard losing her, not just for us, but for her colleagues and her friends. She had so much more to teach all of us. But what is grief if not love persevering? We've really appreciated seeing how many people loved our mom and all the unique ways she impacted their lives. And we know that she'll be remembered not only through everyone's wonderful memories, but in the values she passed on. So thank you all so much for being here. It means a lot to our family.
Do not stand at my grave and weep, by Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die.
Marina, I can't hear you. I'm assuming I'm next. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
there's a video problem on my end. Shazma.
I see.
Thank you for
Oh.
joining us, Shazma.
It's
And I would like to take a moment to introduce you because I think a lot of us know others, but I think we would like to introduce Gauri's close and dear friend, Shazma Mateen. And she's here to say a few words about Gauri.
Thank you, Marina, and thank you for this invitation. I feel it's an honor and a privilege to be here. I met Gauri 26 years ago when we were on a recruiting trip to Houston, and she and Atul were our hosts. Our friendship grew over the years, and we shared so many memories together. The birth of our children, birthdays, family vacations during spring break, watching monumental elections, as well as Indian matchmaking, running the Houston Marathon together, to be clear, the half marathon, taking long walks and having even longer conversations over endless cups of tea. Often when Gauri left work, she'd stop at T's nursery in Bel Air and browse through plants and flowers, marking the end of her workday, pausing and recalibrating to be fully present for her family when she got home. Gauri loved to garden, and she was a hands-on gardener, a petite woman hauling heavy bags of mulch and potting soil herself. Each season, she would plan her garden with care and detail, taking pride and joy in seeing her garden flourish. She tended to her life the same way. Gauri was a planner, meticulously organized. She had to be. She fit so much into her life, every day, every year. I recall on one occasion, I was visiting her mother-in-law at home. She set the oven timer to 17.5 minutes. That was my countdown. It wasn't because she didn't want to spend time with me, but Tanvi had a softball game and she did not want to be late for it. So 17.5 minutes it was. Gauri took the time to enjoy what she planted and nurtured. a loving family, a fulfilling career, a community of close friends. She knew all too well that sometimes there are conditions beyond our control that no amount of care and attention can fix, and that even flowers are fleeting. She accepted that too with grace and composure, with the clear-eyed and practical sentiment with which she lived her whole life. She told me that although she was sad, she had no regrets. Gauri was my dearest friend, my confidant, my companion, ready for every adventure. She was always there for me, no matter how busy or overwhelming her life became. And because she was strong, I knew I could unburden my deepest fears. She'd carry them and protect them, and if she could, she'd find a way through them. One of the last things Gauri and I did together was plan a small garden outside my kitchen window. She sketched the drawing with colored pencils, and we even bought a bird bath together to place under the redbud tree. In the coming weeks, I'm going to plant the garden for my friend. Perhaps not with the meticulous detail with which she would have, but with all the love, tenderness, and joy that I can muster. For I know this is where I will find my friend, Gauri. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaltma, for sharing with all of us. At this time, I would like to welcome those who wish to make a comment to do so by using the raise your hand function within Zoom. It can be found under the reaction section at the bottom of your screen. We'll unmute you to bring you up to the virtual podium to speak. We would love to hear from you. To get us started, I'd like to share a few comments and remembrances that we have received. Impossible to find words to express the impact of our Dr. Varadhachary on so many lives and on so many levels. We can only hope to walk this earth in such a way that our departure will make us forever in everyone's, stay forever in everyone, every person whose life we touched. She was an incredibly kind, thoughtful, supportive mentor who I admire greatly. She'll be very missed. Dr. Varadhachary was truly an amazing person. I will miss her very much. Her office was across from mine, so I used to see her all the time. She always greeted me, and we used to stop by each other's office to chat whenever we could. She was always kind and friendly to everyone. I saw firsthand how everyone appreciated and valued her. She truly loved her family, and talking about them always brought a smile to her face. Her husband and daughters were the highlight of her life, and her pride was reflected in the conversations about them. I will cherish every moment with her and will never forget her. I had the opportunity to work with Dr. V only 4 months before she stepped away from seeing patients. In that very short time, I learned so much through her example about the field of oncology that was new to me, about patient care in our unique patient population, and about leadership in roles big and small. And even before motherhood, which was special to me as a new mom at that time, my time spent with her was one of tremendous personal and professional gain. I feel incredibly blessed to have known her and learned from her. She will be missed by so many, especially her parents who loved her so dearly, patients who love her so dearly, and she leaves behind a beautiful legacy, and one can never be forgotten. think we have a few folks that are going to bring up. To get started, I think Dr. Javli.
Thank you, James. I want to, of all the adjectives that have been mentioned, the ones that strike me the most are her grace, her professionalism, and her absolute clarity of vision. She was a truly kind person, and I met her for 15 years ago when I first came for an interview. And at that time, the person who interviewed before her was Doug Evans, who was a legendary surgeon. And he said, "You're about to meet Gauri Varadhachary. She's an extremely talented and a gifted clinician." And I walked into her room with that preface, and she put me at ease immediately. We discovered we were from the same city. In fact, her father had been our family practitioner for some time, and Atul's dad had been my professor in medical school. And then we began a very close professional relationship. We shared the same space for over a decade. She was an extremely professional and talented clinician. I could always rely on her counsel when it came to patients, when it came to career, or when it came to personal issues. And she had an absolute clarity of vision, clear in terms of what she wanted for her patients. She could dissect through the most complex case and really identify the problem immediately. She had absolute clarity of what she wanted in a profession. And the utmost priority for her was a family above everything else. She also had clarity about what she wanted in the world and all the great work that she and Atul did together for this charitable organization called Pratham. And through their work, they have impacted millions of impoverished children in India, and by focusing on the elementary education. So I'm going to say that although we never expected in our lifetime that we would attend a memorial for our close friend and colleague, this is indeed a celebration and a hope that all of us, including Atul and his beautiful daughters, will continue in her legacy, and they will always be a part of the MD Anderson family.
Thank you, Dr. Javli. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Huey to speak up to the podium.
Thanks, James. So I had the chance to work with Gauri during my time as a fellow and as a junior faculty member within her department, having had the privilege of caring for a set of patients that she was so passionate about, those with cancer of unknown primary. Many today have remembered her as an outstanding clinician, and I echo these things. I often sat and tried to absorb her knowledge while also trying to not let my face reflect the fact that the depth of her knowledge was something that I would aspire to over the course of an entire career, not just a few years. She was clearly playing chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. You know, not only did she know the right thing to do, she knew the right way to do it. And she had a keen sense of how to do things well, how to impact patients, how to mentor, how to inspire others, how to gently convince people that her way was right. And my experience was that it usually was. So I'm heartbroken for her family and for so many of those who are close to her. But today I want to thank them for sharing her with us. To Tanvi and Ria, thank you for your courageous words and perspective today. I lost my dad when I was your age, and so many people told me how wonderful he was and how many lives he impacted. And I knew that to be true then, but have only seen that manifested over and over again throughout the years. I miss him dearly, but have received many lessons since that time from him that I've seen over and over again and have been afforded many silver linings. So I just want you to know that your mom will continue to impact my life and career for years to come. And I'm so grateful to have had our lives intersect. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Arvind Desari to the podium.
Thank you, James. Like Milind, I first met Gauri nearly about a decade ago on the interview trail. And by then, having seen her from afar on the podium at major meetings, reading about her publications, I was in complete awe by the time I met her. But she put me at ease immediately. And even during that first interaction, I came to appreciate that she was just as kind and gentle as she was brilliant. And over the past few years, as her colleague, I came to appreciate that this gentleness came coupled with strength, strength of character, strength of spirit, and strength of conviction. As the saying goes, I mean, nothing is so strong as gentleness, and nothing so gentle as real strength. And she was the true embodiment of this. I mean, I could give so many instances to highlight this amazing quality. Maybe the last interaction I had with her is a perfect example. A few months ago, I ran into her unexpectedly, and she was in the midst of dealing with her own diagnosis, her own illness. And she absolutely refused to talk about her, what she was dealing with. The entire conversation was about me, about how I was doing, and focused entirely about how things were going for me. And this was humbling, inspiring, and truly impactful. And to me, and I'm probably speaking for everybody who's fortunate enough to know her, this is probably her greatest contribution. The lives she touched and shaped. And she did not do this by saying or preaching, but by leading her life the way she did. For hers was the perfect example of how a life should be led, and we've heard so much about it today. And she had so much to contribute to Anderson and to cancer patients and to everybody around her. And I must say her greatest legacy by far would be the way she led her life. For that will be an example, a beacon for all of us on how we should lead our own lives. Atul, Tanvi, and Ria, all I can say is for me, and probably for all of us on this call, at the end of our own journeys, when we look back, if we can say with confidence that we lived our lives, conducted ourselves, at least in a small part, like she did, I think it would be lives well lived. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind, for sharing that. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Bloom to the podium.
Thank you, James. I met Dr. V when I was actually a fellow at Baylor. She came to give us this lecture about unknown primary, and it was an amazing lecture. And I was actually rotating at the VA. She was presenting there, and I just saw her, how she presented, and I was like, wow, I want to be like her. She was the definition of an exceptional person, and she cared for her patients so dearly, and she also inspired us all. As everyone had said, she had this ability to make us feel heard and appreciated. She supported us all, and she was very respected, but she was also loved here. She was humble and calm, but she had this force of energy that was able to change things and change things around her. And she worked really hard and made sure the institution and the world was a better place for her patients and for all of us, and especially her loved ones, her family. She will always live in our hearts, and we will always remember her as this amazing human being that had touched many lives. I like to share a small poem. God saw you getting tired. A cure was not to be. So he put his arms around you and whispered, "Come to me." With tearful eyes, we watch you as you slowly slip away. Although we love you dearly, you couldn't stay. A golden heart stopped beating, hard-working hands at rest. God took you home to prove to us that he only takes the best. Atul, Tembi, and Rhea, we're really sorry for your loss, but your mom was an amazing person, and we will always celebrate her life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bloom. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Jim Abruzzi, who was the chair and actually recruited Gauri to MD Anderson to GI Medical Oncology. Dr. Abruzzi, Jim?
Thank you, James. And I just wanted to say hello to all my friends from Durham, North Carolina, my friends back at MD Anderson. It's so wonderful to hear and see you all, even on this most sad occasion. I also want to thank Atul for reminding me and making me aware of this wonderful celebration. It's really been so rewarding to hear how Gauri has touched everyone at MD Anderson and how her career has flourished over the years. So I remember when I first met Gauri and recruited her from Baylor, and as many people have said, I was just completely blown away by her enthusiasm, her intelligence, her zest for medicine and for oncology. And it was such a blessing to the department to be able to have her come to MD Anderson. I was so impressed with her that as sort of my career was evolving at MD Anderson, I talked with her about taking over the reins with Marty Raber of the unknown primary research operation. And as you heard, she did an amazing job with that, and something I was incredibly proud of for her. So Gauri was amazingly special. I spoke with her for about an hour, not too long after she was diagnosed. And as other people have said, what she wanted to focus on was the future and what was happening in my life and what she was planning to do over the next period of time, however long that was. I was so impressed with that conversation as somebody who had really thought deeply about the important things in life and how one should try to comport oneself even under the most trying circumstances. And it's such a pleasure to hear how wonderful Gauri has done throughout this very difficult time. So it's been a real delight for me to be able to participate in this celebration. I'm really happy for Gauri and for all the lives that she touched at MD Anderson and all across Houston. I'm going to rededicate myself to trying to get my garden up to the level that Gauri has. We should be able to do that. I'm going to have to work really hard at it. Those are beautiful pictures. Thank you, Bob. And I just want to say at the end, I will miss her deeply. She's just a special, special person. And thanks for letting me participate in this. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Jim, for recruiting Gauri to Anderson. And you have tough competition in that gardening project. Okay, now I'd like to invite Dr. Patrick Hu, who is the former division head here at MD Anderson and who is joining us from Moffitt.
I had the honor of working with Gauri over the 17 years that I was at MD Anderson. This has been just a truly beautiful celebration of her life. And it's been wonderful to be part of this today. Thanks, Atul, for letting me know about this ceremony. Gauri was not only an incredible physician and someone that I would go to anytime I ran into a cancer of unknown primary to understand what to do. But she also understood the operational side of medicine, really unique for a medical oncologist at the time. And that was a time when cancer medicine really had a lot of the operations within cancer medicine. And so we really relied heavily on Gauri for running the operations of cancer medicine and advising us on these issues. And then when COVID hit and we really had to pay attention to the goals of care and the ICU, Gauri did an incredible job with Marina and the rest of the team, helping us with understanding goals of care. She taught me a lot about goals of care. I really didn't know much about it, to be honest. And she helped a lot. She was there every day on those calls, on those ICU calls, and really leaned in despite her diagnosis. And then she showed such courage with her disease process and her willingness to undergo and experimental treatments. Thanks to the Till Lab and Greg Lizet and Rhoda Maria. I think she's taught me a lot that I'm now taking to the Moffitt Cancer Center. So what she has spread is not just within MD Anderson, but now across the country and multiple institutions. What we're going to rededicate ourselves to is finding better therapies for cancer, because it's clear that this is what's needed. It's just inexcusable to have taken someone so special as Gauri. We'll always remember her. I will always remember her. And she has gifted me with much knowledge that we will take to the rest of the world.
Thank you, Patrick, for sharing those words. And we'll definitely, it's something we're going to be continuing to work to improve the outcome of patients with cancer. And now I'd like to recognize Jorge Alpin.
My name is Jorge Alpin. I am a friend of Gauri's as a neighbor and of Atul's and the girls. I've only known Gauri for about 5 years, but I had the opportunity to talk to her many times while on our walks with our dogs. And me being a pancreatic cancer survivor gave Gauri a little bit of an opportunity to see how to deal with this part of the disease. And we had many discussions as to how to deal with it. And it not only helped me a lot, I hope I helped her at least a little bit. It is such a loss. I am so deeply emotional about it. My eyes haven't stopped crying. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Kesia Leffert to the podium. Kesia?
Yes, thank you for allowing me the chance to be part of sharing Dr. Yao. I just wanted to say to the group, Dr. V was a treasured role model, teacher, and mentor to me. I feel truly, truly blessed to have had the chance to be mentored by her during this past year, my first year on faculty. Dr. V and I would meet every few weeks to discuss complex patients that I was taking care of. And I would be in awe each time, not just by her, the depth of her knowledge of medicine, but also by her gift to practice and teach the art of medicine. And I always left each session just feeling very inspired to aspire to be the kind of physician that she was. And I remember at one of the lowest points in my journey, she was the first person that I actually called to talk to, and I was crying on the phone, but she was very kind, very firm, empathetic, but very decisive and practical in her advice. And that kind of just embodies how she was. And over time, these meetings came to be the highlight of my week. And I remember saying to her on one occasion that I don't have any patients to present this week, but I enjoyed talking to you so much that I've been looking forward to this session all week. And I just overall just admired her grace, her strength, her power, her leadership, and her reach across the whole institution, across the field of oncology, but also her ability to care for someone at the individual level as well, for somebody who is a junior faculty like myself. So to her family, I just want to add to the chorus that's been said just now by everyone in this group that Dr. V was loved and treasured and will be truly missed. I really, I'm going to miss our sessions that we would always have.
Thank you, Kezia, for sharing. Although we're running a little bit close to time, I'd like to ask everyone's permission to go just a few minutes over and to allow everyone to share. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Martin Raber to the podium. Martin has been a longtime colleague of ours in GI medical oncology. Dr. Raber? Maybe we'll go to the next and come back to Dr. Raber later. I'd like to invite Dr. Scott Kopetz to the podium.
Oh, thank you. I struggled to really add as much to the beautiful words that you've heard before, but I wanted to reflect on some interactions that I had with Gauri a few months ago. And I think you heard about her impact really at in this institutional level, a national level, international level. And I think there was a real focus on also the individual level, as you've heard as well. And I think I was struck several months ago when she called me up and really just wanted to kind of talk about some of our junior faculty and how they were making it through COVID. What was what were some of the things that we could do to help them and help with their well-being and mental state. And I think that's such a kind and really struck me as an amazing reflection of generosity in the middle of everything that she was going through, that she would kind of reach out and help nurture all of us through this in the department. And I think she's touched me in so many ways and taught me how to be a better better mentor, how to be a better colleague, how to be a better friend. And I think her legacy will certainly live on in our group and in many of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing. I see Dr. Raber on, and I'd like to invite Dr. Raber to the podium.
Thank you, James. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Marty.
Okay. Obviously, like everyone else, it appears I knew Gauri very well, and I thought she was an incredible person. We worked together in the unknown primary clinic while our careers overlapped for about 10 or 12 years. She took that program to new heights in all aspects. I'm just going to tell you one anecdote. About 3 years ago, I was seriously ill in Portugal, and I felt I needed to talk to Gauri about all that she had meant to me and all that we had done together. And we started an email conversation about those things, about life and death. And we didn't know at the time that the separation that was coming was not me dying, it was her dying. And I have to be honest, I simply have not come to grips with it yet, with her death yet. I think she was an amazing person. I miss her dearly, and I think about her often. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raber, for sharing. Now I'd like to invite Laura to the podium.
Can y'all see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. I didn't actually think I'd have the emotional capacity to speak, but because my own mother passed away a couple weeks ago, and so, Dr. V was such my work mom that I would feel very disappointed in myself if I did not pull out my inner Gauri to be bold and brave enough to say how much she meant to me. I'm one of the PAs in the department, if you don't know who I am, and I'm sitting in a car. I actually pulled off the road to say something, so forgive me. I met her in 2002. We started around the same time on inpatient, and I actually assumed that she was at least 20 years older than me, because not because of the way she looked, because we all knew she was beautiful inside and out, but because her wisdom and knowledge transcended most human beings, that I assumed that she just had way more years of experience than me. Turns out she was only 3 years older than me. She always was a force of supernatural grace. And it was always about the patients. And I'll tell a very brief story because I know we've gone a little long. But when we were on inpatient, we had a gentleman that had a bowel obstruction, and everyone was focusing on his bowel obstruction. But it was habit for me to go through a review of systems, and it turned out he was blind in one eye. And he said to me, well, that's okay. I can see out of the other eye. And when I told Dr. V this, she was like, we were both just dumbfounded that this had been missed. And we consulted every specialty you could think of. We transferred him to the ICU and did the full workup, and she was relentless, and she figured out that he had a B12 deficiency that had led him to become blind. And when we walked into the room after we replaced his B12, he could see. He called us his miracle doctors. And she turned to him and she patted me on the back and she said, yes, she figured this out for you. And I looked at her like, and I didn't say anything. And I said, well, it was teamwork. And so when we walked out of the room, I said to her, you know, I mean, we worked on this together. And she said, oh, it's always about the patient. It's always a team effort. And that's basically how I've carried myself through MD Anderson for the last 19 years, that it's always about the patient. It's always should be a team effort, that no one should be getting more kudos than anyone else, but that was part of her wisdom that, again, transcended most human beings. And she did it only for the patients. And she loved her family and her colleagues and her friends like no other. And I will miss the clicking of her heels down the hall, because in clinic she also sprinted the way she did at the ball or anywhere else she needed to go. And I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to have some closure, because it's been a very difficult month, and she would have been somebody that I would have needed a hug from right now. And so to her family, thank you for sharing her with us. She was a beautiful soul, and she is happy and looking down on us forever. And thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for sharing that beautiful story. And now I'd like to invite our last speaker, Dr. Priya Bisol, to the podium.
Hello, everybody. It's really sad to know that Gauri has left us. I got to know her during the Pancreas conference, and I was really awed at what a great personality she had. She could stand up to all these clinicians who would be talking about their patients, and she wanted really to take great care of all her patients. I got to know her better when I moved closer to a house. We used to go for walks together. She was just amazing. I mean, she had so much strength, so much vitality, and she always cared about her patients. I mean, not only she was great at work, she was also great at gardening, and her house was impeccable. Whenever you went in, she threw great parties. And I'm going to really, really miss her, walking with her during the week and the weekends.
Thank you, Priya, for sharing. I think we have a couple more. Next, I'm going to invite Beth Garcia to the podium. Beth? Okay. Maybe we'll go to Beth, we can't hear you. Maybe we can go to Honorable Machok, Dr. Machok next, and come back to you.
Hi, can you see me? Hi, this is Arban.
Hi, Arban.
So, hi. Thank you so much for this opportunity to memorialize Gauri and say a few words. I'm actually at Chicago airport, so I was a little hesitant to talk because of the background noise, but I feel like it's been such a beautiful service. I should say a few words for my dear friend. And so I just wanted to say a few sort of memories. The first is Gauri was actually the first person who took me to lunch when I interviewed at MD Anderson. We went to the faculty cafeteria. She ordered food, and I'll never forget this. The food came, she ate it and said, "This is not spicy enough, but I assure you, Houston has a lot of really great spicy Indian food." And somehow that stuck to my mind. I don't know why, but I remember that really well. And of course, we've had a lot of dinners and lunches after that, including the Pancreas team lunches, dinners. A lot of folks have mentioned about how hard Gauri worked, and I have to reiterate that. I mean, she was incredible. Everything that I threw at her as part of the Pancreas team, she just took it and she ran with it and she made it happen. The other thing that I think a couple of folks have talked about is how she walked fast, and there's a distinctive sound to her shoes that I always remember sitting in the GI medical oncology conference room, and you knew that Gauri was coming because there was that click clack of her boots, and that was a woman walking with a purpose. So Gauri and I have obviously also interacted on many projects, many patients. One anecdote I remember is when we saw a patient, we actually visited their home, and again, just shows that Gauri was always looking beyond just the medicines and the drugs that patients with cancer were being given. This family really wanted to give this patient turmeric because they had heard somewhere that turmeric is good for the cancer. And I could see that Gauri knew that it wasn't going to help much, but she saw in the patient's eyes and the patient's family's eyes that they really wanted to do this. So she said, "Yeah, go ahead. Just make sure that there's not a lot of reflux from the turmeric." And that just embodies everything that Gauri was. She looked at the patient in such a holistic manner. It was not just somebody who was getting a particular regimen or a combination of drugs. There was a human being that was being treated, and that's just something that I again will always remember about Gauri. So Atul, Tanvi, and Ria, thank you so much for sharing your mom with us, and Atul for sharing your wife with us. For me, over the last 8 years, Gauri has been such a special friend, such a special colleague every step of the way. I think that our pancreas program would basically have fallen apart were it not for everything she had taken on her shoulders. So thank you so much. And again, I'm really grateful to have been a part of her life through our brief journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Anirban, for sharing. Next, I'd like to invite Beth Garcia to the podium.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Oh,
We
yeah,
can see
you.
you.
I'm so sorry. I can't see it. So anyways, my name's Elizabeth Garcia. I was Dr. V's medical assistant. I just want her family to know that she was a great inspiration to everyone. I mean, of course, everybody's already said it, but I loved sitting in the room listening to her. We'd be in clinic and she knew my interest in a lot of things, and she would tell me, Liz, come look at this, and she would show me scans, and she would, I guess you could say, kind of quiz me and ask me different things. And she was always willing to teach and always willing to help anybody. And I would love the days when Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rogoff would come in there and they'd sit down and they'd say, I have this, and just sitting there listening to all of them speak and trying to brainstorm and figure out exactly what they were going to do or what they would think that the patient should have done was an inspiration. So she was just a great person. And again, thank you to her family for sharing. And I'm so blessed that I was able to work with her side by side for so many years. And even a couple of months ago, we would email back and forth, just kind of, and I know she emailed a couple of the team members and we would just say happy birthday, or she would shoot us a happy birthday email. We would kind of just say, hope you're doing well, just to kind of get her mind off of her own situation and stick with the team. So just thank you to her family, and she will truly be missed. And I loved her always. And I hope everyone, cherished her memories as much as I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And also, I want to thank everyone who joined us today and who have shared. It's so wonderful to hear from everyone how Gauri has touched all of our lives and how she'll be remembered. And now I'd like to invite Gail Kennebrew to give some closing comments.
Thank you, Dr. Yao. The family has selected a poem by Rabindranath Tagore, and it is titled, Farewell, My Friends. Before I read it, I am struck by the comments about Dr. V. I'm struck by the phrase, put on our inner Gauri. I think that's something I'm going to remember. And that's going to be something I'm going to share around MD Anderson. I would like to remind us, as I listen to the words, that Gauri was a gift to humanity. A gift that cannot be taken away because she is a part of each and every one whose lives she touched. She is a part of you, a part of MD Anderson, a part of her family. And as long as her name is called, as long as she is remembered, she lives on. Here is the poem. Farewell, my friends. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, said the pain I leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the strings pulling at the heart and soul, the strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. At the turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me even when time raced me by. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I'll like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember, then you never die. Thank you for coming and joining us in this celebration of life for Dr. Gauri V. This ends our service.